And it looks like we're beginning now with Rob Vanstone. Rob, please go ahead.
Oh my goodness, the pressure. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm good, Rob. Thanks. How are you?
Fine, thank you. So to get your reaction or your thoughts on the signing of Jameer Thurman and the importance of that move, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Jameer's obviously on the football side of things is a very good football player and veteran guy that's had a lot of success in this league and played at a high level. And then, what he brings to the locker room is invaluable. Coming to a new team and um, trying to get used to the players in the locker room and the coaching staff, and also trying to develop yourself into a leader of a new team is often challenging. But he did a nice job of that, and he's just a natural leader. Great work ethic, and someone you definitely want to build your defense around.
Still trying to work the mic at age 60. This is challenging. And to be able to get him signed for 2 years, how important was the duration in addition to the presence?
It's important, it's good to have continuity. I think that Jameer was also looking for that, making somewhere his home, and obviously credit to our coaching staff and Corey, and just our organization as a whole, making him feel welcome and making him feel that it's a place that he wants to stay for a long period of time. So it was nice to sign the 2-year deal. Those are always good, especially when you're talking about someone that's a core player on your team.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. We'll move now to Justin Dunk. Justin, please proceed.
Hey, Jeremy, Justin Dunk, 3downnation.com and CKRM 620 in Saskatchewan as well. Thanks for doing this. I'm curious about Marcus Sales and if you anticipate being able to re-sign him. And I'm wondering if you're going to drop that news right after your availability like Corey did yesterday with Jameer.
Justin, that's a long last name you had there.
Sorry.
No, I'm probably not going to get too much into guys that we haven't signed yet. I don't anticipate anything coming out in the next hour like yesterday for sure, with Marcus. But we have had talks with him and his agent. They're kind of ongoing, just like they are with a lot of our free agents. So I'm not going to comment too much about the guys that aren't signed. If you want to ask about the guys that are, but Marcus is a very good player. Came into our team late in training camp or late in the off season and did a great job for us. He's a very good player, and we'd love to have him back, but in most situations, it's got to work out for both parties.
One guy that you recently signed, Jake Mayer, I'm curious about how that trade came together, sort of the genesis of it and the thought process behind it.
Sure. After we identified, what we wanted to do at quarterback, it's one of those situations where do you wait to free agency to talk to somebody, or is there a possibility for you to, make a trade? The team that probably isn't bringing them back gains something in the draft pick, and then we have exclusive rights to talk to them for an extended period of time before free agents. So kind of went back and forth with it, to be honest, and just decided to reach out to Calgary and see if they'd be willing to do it. And then once we agreed to the draft pick, it was kind of just a no-brainer for us to get a chance to talk to them. And still some risk there, being able to get them signed before free agency, but we felt the reward was worth the risk.
Could he potentially be your heir apparent or starting quarterback in the future? I know Corey Mace wants Trevor Harris to play forever. Probably not happen, but does Jake Mayer have that skill set and ability in your mind?
Yeah, we'll see. He's obviously been a starter in this league. It's a fresh start for him, new team, new organization. So we'll see where it goes. We haven't had any of those discussions about past this year, to be honest, with Jake or Trevor. But they both know the situation that we're in, and hopefully we have a lot of success with the guys that we have, and we can keep it rolling with the guys we have. But that's kind of yet to be determined what 2026 looks like.
Last one for me. You have Trevor, Jake, Jack, and I think Michael under contract at the quarterback position. Would that be fair to assume that Shea Patterson won't be back with the Riders?
It's hard to tell right now. I think that it'll have to be a conversation with Shea and his agent just to see if there is still an opportunity for him here, and if so, what does that look like? And is it something that they would be willing to talk about? And so those conversations haven't taken place yet, but they will in the near future. But I wouldn't 100% say that there's no chance that Shea would be back. We just haven't gone down that road yet.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You bet.
Thank you, Justin. Next up, we'll go to Britton Gray. Britton, please go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, at these winter meetings, there's often talks about maybe some rule changes, how they can improve the CFL and everything. Well, what's kind of the topic of discussion out there during the meetings? Any rule changes kind of up for debate you know of?
First of all, Happy New Year, Britton. Hope you had a good holiday. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you bet. I'm going to kind of bail out on that one. Corey's actually in the rules committee meetings right now, so after he goes through those meetings, and we'll have a discussion on those, and we'll have good conversations with any of the changes, so we can have our input and any of the changes. But I don't have anything to report on the rule changes. I don't want to say I bailed out of those meetings, but I think it's important for the coach to be involved with those, seeing they're down on the field with the officials every game, and they should be there firsthand. So that's why Corey's in those meetings.
Fair enough. And so this offseason, how nice is it for you as the GM that you finally get the return to playoffs, and now it's about kind of that consistency instead of trying to figure out, okay, how many new guys do we need to bring into this team?
Yeah, I think I talked about it last free agency that it's not exactly a situation you want to be in when you have to be super active in free agency. You really want to get your core guys in-house and then try to retain them so they can build that continuity with each other. So different position that we've been in the last couple of years for sure. Really focusing on trying to get our guys back and build that that locker room camaraderie that usually pays dividends for the season. So it's a good feeling. Also nice to have the coaching staff in place after going through a new hire last year, and having the majority of the coaches back in place is nice, where you don't have to focus a lot on setting up the staff, and you can kind of just focus in on your own free agents and then going into free agency.
And just another one, just AJ Ouellette came in as a big price free agent, kind of dealt with a bunch of injuries last year. You go out and sign Rockwell Armstead, who comes with his own price tag. Is AJ's contract maybe going to get restructured or anything about that?
I wouldn't discuss a player's contract or where we are with talking about a player that's under contract. I think if anything did happen, I think you guys are always well aware of when something happens. So we'll keep those discussions on the financial aspects of the contracts between us and the players, and just out of respect for the players.
Okay, thank you. See you in the new year.
You bet. Thanks, Britton.
Thank you, Britton. It looks like we do have a number of questions currently lined up, so we'll ask that you please limit yourselves to a single question and one follow-up. Next up, we'll go to Frank Sinichi. Frank, please go ahead.
Thank you for doing this, Jeremy. When you're talking about the cap and you're trying to build a core, how difficult has it been to build on that core? And do you feel good about being able to add to that core, I guess, mid-range core guys?
I don't know if it's overly as difficult as people might think, but I think you're more so looking at what players you have under contract, what their salary ranges are, and kind of where you want to allocate the rest of your dollars within the cap. So I think that's more of the challenge is kind of to strategically set up your roster and then find the right players that fit in those salaries that are a little bit higher than the average. So it's always a juggling act, but it's something that you do early in the season or the off season, is to kind of set your set your priorities of who you want back. And again, um, everyone gets caught up on who's signing when, but sometimes contracts are offered, they take a little bit longer and they kind of fall into place at different times. But I wouldn't say that it's overly challenging. It's just more of where you're going to allocate the dollars to, Frank.
We'll take a sidestep. How happy are you with Corey's job and in helping to maybe handle one of the biggest problems you had before he came, and that was discipline? And is that a way to build a better team? Does it help you to build a better team when you have that kind of success in discipline?
Obviously, discipline in football is a big deal. I think there's a number of different disciplines. I mean, one's talking about just in penalties in general, and then just discipline in gameplay and Corey preaches that there's a fine line between playing aggressive and playing dirty, and you want to keep those penalties down. So I think he just does a real good job of stressing the importance of trying to play clean, hard football. And he also relies on the players to kind of discipline themselves. I think the best teams are the teams or the players take accountability for for penalties and for discipline and for doing things the right way. So really just kind of I know culture's a buzzword, but just the attitude, the personality that Corey brings to work every day. I mean, he's the same guy in the locker room that he is when you run into him in the hallway, and out in the public, he's always the same guy. So it's definitely nice to see him. I don't want to talk too much good stuff about him, Frank. His head will get too big, but he's done a nice job for us.
I got to know him a little bit. I don't think that's possible, to be honest with you. Thanks
You're
for helping me to understand the importance of core players and putting them together.
Thank you very much, Frank. Next up, we'll head to JC Abbott. JC, please go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, JC Abbott, 3 Down Nation. AJ Ouellette, to go back to him, I know you won't discuss the financials, but how committed are you to bringing him back as the number 1 running back entering training camp? Is that a done deal, or is that still up for debate?
Well, JC, he's under contract and on our team, and so if you're asking if we're going to cut him, which is not in the plans, AJ is someone that we believe is a very good player, and he's a big part of our team. So I don't know exactly what you're asking, but we're definitely committed to having AJ as part of our team.
I know some fans were a little bit disappointed with the production or his presence on the field last year based on how much you were paying him. What makes you so confident that he's going to have a bounce back next season?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. All of our players, you don't know how they're going to perform when they go into the season, but I do feel like he's going to be healthier than he was coming into training camp last year. I think that he was had some problems with his hips when he came into camp, and tried to fight through it for most of the year and battled and really did everything he could to try to get healthy for us. So I feel like he's going to be healthier when he comes to camp, which should give him a better start. And he brings a lot to the table, a lot of intangibles to our team. Great team guy, and we're excited for him to be part of our team.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, JC.
Thank you, JC. We'll now move to our 3 final questions, beginning now with Donovan Mace. Donovan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy, again for doing this. Jeremy, it seems like you've really solidified the defensive front, maybe linebackers, and at least created some competition at the backup quarterback position. I just want to get a sense from you if there's one position on the defense and one position on the offense that you're really looking to shore up here before free agency, or in free agency, or through the draft, that you're really looking to really solidify here.
Sure. I think offensively, I'll start offensively. We're pretty, we're in a pretty good place offensively, just with the number of guys that we have under contract or that we've signed back. A large list of the starters will be back from last year. If I had a position that we would be looking at to still do some work on would be Canadian O linemen. Usually you want to have a good group of those guys, especially with the amount of injuries that we've had on the offensive line the last number of years. But we still got some work to do there. On defense, we're still we're still working on some of the free agents. I think if you look at our defensive line, it's an area where what's our plan there on the defensive line, and where will we go there? We've got a number of potential free agents that are still free agents that we're working through, and that would probably be an area that we'll look to address either in free agency, whether it's from our negotiation list or whether it's from the draft.
And I also just want to get a sense of how busy this time of year is. Is this the busiest time of year as a general manager trying to re-sign players, and then you're also preparing to see who will become a free agent or who's available in the draft and things like that?
Yeah, this is in football operations, this is really our main season as the off season, right? Because you're putting the team together and working through free agency, working through the draft and your negotiation list players. So this is honestly our busiest time, especially with the number of free agents that we have every year. Working through the sheer number of free agents that you have every year is a lot of work, but it's what we signed up for, and we understand it hasn't been much different the last number of years, but it is busy. After we get through signing our own free agents, you're also in the process of evaluating potential other free agents that may make it to free agency if there's anyone there that you can feel like could help your team. And then as soon as that's over, you're jumping right into the draft and going to the combines, and so it's kind of it's just a cycle that you go through every year. But football ops, personnel, very busy time.
Thanks for doing this, Jeremy.
You bet.
Thank you, Donovan. We proceed now with Dave Thomas. Dave, if you please.
Good morning. Happy New Year, sir.
Same
Obviously,
to you, Dave.
Whether you're entering a game or building a roster, there's obviously a game plan. And with that game plan, there's improvisation that comes along with it. Is that the same when you're negotiating a salary? You have a game plan with someone when it comes to a contract negotiation, and then there's an improvisation. Like, how does that work?
Well, I think what you do, at least how I do it is, when we decide on, kind of players we want to offer contracts back, you kind of try to figure out, what the value or what the cost would be to retain the player. And it always changes, Dave. It's never what you think. You try to make your best guess from the information you have of kind of where the player would sit. But you don't actually know until you get into it with the agents. Agents are always communicating with every team, so they have an idea of what the player's value is, and then ultimately, sometimes you got to pivot and make changes and this amount, but it's going to be much higher than then you may pivot and say, okay, maybe we need to shift where we're allocating our salary cap money to. So it does change quite a bit as you go through the process. You ultimately develop a plan in the beginning, and then as you gather information, which is a big part of it, trying to gather as much information you can from players and agents, then you're kind of deciding on how your team's going to be set up. And sometimes there's more availability of certain positions in free agency, so eventually someone's going to fall down, and you can get some value out of some of those players. But it's kind of definitely a fluid situation when you're dealing with cap.
Also, just to build upon, you mentioned the continuity earlier, whether it was with the core of the roster or the coaching staff in general, having that continuity, and as much as you do year over year, what does that afford you? What is the advantage that affords you?
I think the big thing is when you start training camp, you're just ahead of the game, where everyone's already familiar with everything as small as the buildings you're in for training camp, where you're going, And then obviously the playbook, the installation is kind of second nature for the guys because they've already been through it. And then also the players are familiar with the coaches are familiar with the players, which helps with the team building process. So, you know, when you play next to people that you played with from the year before, you know, it kind of becomes second nature on when you know what they're going to do in different situations. So experience matters. I know a lot of people are always hoping for the next star to be introduced into our league, um, which is always great. But we're also looking for continuity with veteran players.
Thank you very much again for your time today.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. We'll now go to Rob Vanstone, and then we'll take a quick one from Taylor Shire. But first, Rob Vanstone. Rob, please go ahead.
Thanks so much, Herb. Jeremy, this will shock you, but I have a quarterback question. Inevitable, huh? How important is quarterbacking depth when you look at even across the spectrum of Canadian football over the years? It's generally a tall order to keep one quarterback behind center for 18 games, not just in Saskatchewan, but virtually everywhere last season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bigger history throughout the league, but if you just look at our team as on its own, you go back to the Darian Durant days of the years that he got injured, and the timing of the injuries and where the team was at when he got injured. The team was rolling pretty well, and then we have an injury at the quarterback, and all of a sudden things kind of snowball a little bit for you. So it's the most important position on the field, as everyone knows, and to have a guy that would be able to not only go in there and do well as a quarterback, but also go in and help you win games is very important. I think that pretty much everyone understands how important that is. But I think we've over the last decade or so, we've had our fair share of times where the starters gotten hurt, and then we hit a roadblock with our starter being out for an extended period of time. So especially when you get the long-term injuries, that's when you really need that depth of quarterbacks behind them. But I think we did a decent job last year when Trevor was injured. I think we were 2-3-1, and in all the games that we did lose. But you can never have enough good quarterbacks on your roster.
I should point out that in 2010, your last season, Darian Durant started all 21 games. So
He must have had great protection.
I'd also like to get your thoughts on the re-signing of Malik Carney, please.
Yeah, so Malik is someone that we signed in free agency last year, and he's someone that just, I think, for whatever reason, he just hasn't had the statistics that you think that he could reach. And he had a couple sacks that were called back early in the year, but he's someone that constantly wins his one-on-ones, and that's a big deal. I think all sacks. I don't believe all sacks are equal, and that if you're you're rushing and you're getting blocked and the quarterback scrambles and you fall off and you get a sack, it still goes down as a sack, but you don't see a lot of times when the DN is truly beating the tackle and applying pressure to the quarterback. I think Malik's very good at that, and I think he's got tremendous upside. And I still believe that Malik's going to be one of a top tier defensive end in our league, and just needs to put it all together. And last year, he was fighting through a high ankle that slowed him down a little bit, but we're happy to have him back, and hopefully he can have a healthy year, and he applies a lot of pressure, and pass rushers in our league are critical, right? You want to protect the quarterback and get to the quarterback. So I'm excited to have him back, and the sky's the future for him.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Herb.
Thank you, Rob. We'll now go to one quick one from Taylor Shire. Taylor, go ahead.
Thanks. I have two quick ones, if that's okay. Just two personnel questions. Jeremy, are you going to deploy a short yardage quarterback this year? What does that look like?
That's going to depend on what it looks like in free agency and then who we have. We're going to have, well, I shouldn't say it with the amount of fullbacks and other positions that have been taking snaps on short yardage, but we're going to have a quarterback that's going to run the short yardage. It's just more dependent on, who we think will be successful for it. So, we do have, a plan in place for both situations, whether we have someone that I guess the public would say is a true short yardage quarterback, or whether we don't have someone that we feel like is a short yardage quarterback. It's a great question, Taylor, because, do you want to just have a quarterback that's just your short yardage guy, or do you want a number 3 that, you feel like is going to develop into a starter someday? So, those are questions that we'll have to answer and will be answered throughout, through free agency. Sorry, I kind of avoided the question for you.
No, you sort of answered it. Just when you thought you had your left tackle, Trevor Reed obviously gets an opportunity. Is that position already, the next guy already on the roster, or is that going to be something through free agency?
Well, we hope that he's on our team right now. But coming into camp last year, no one really knew who Trevor Reed was, and we just did an excellent job with our scouting at that position, and it's been such a tough position for us the last number of years, just with the injuries and the amount of guys we've gone through. So, I guess the fortunate part of last year with having so many injuries and playing so many tackles that we actually have a number of them that are on our roster. So, yeah, we feel like we probably have a guy that could fill that position, but it is disappointing when you have a guy that's came in and started every game for us and 24, 25 years old and super athletic, and the future is bright for him. But we do feel like we've got some guys that can compete for that position for sure.